1,000 jubilant England fans turned up for a very hastily arranged homecoming celebration. There was music. They had to let the fans in early because so many had queued to get in. And I think that showed that the passion for women's football in this country is growing and growing.
I'm joined by Tanya Martin, Head of Insight and Innovation at Women in Sport, an organisation set up to encourage what it says, I guess. Tanya, thanks very much for being with us. We heard Natalie, our correspondent there, I don't know if you heard her saying women's football is not the same product as men's because it's 50 years behind. How is it different?
Well, I think, first of all, just to say this is a huge moment for women's football and women's sport more broadly. You know, it was such a dramatic tournament that kept us on the edge of our seats. But I think what sets the Lionesses apart for me is the teamwork, the determination, the grit and the resilience that they show to bounce back from the adversity that they experience. You know, the support that they showed each other on and off the field through really tough times as well throughout the tournament was incredible and hugely inspirational for everybody, and particularly girls. And I think, as your reporter just said, you know, we are 50 years behind, essentially, when it comes to the men's game, because we know that women's football was banned for 50 years. And so winning the Euros not once, but not twice, you know, is a really powerful symbol, actually, of the equality that so many women and girls have been fighting for and still continue to fight for in sport. We've had less investment. We've had less support. We've had less visibility until more recently. So it is a different game, but I think in its own right, it is a great game. And that's what we need to appreciate. And I think that's what the Lionesses really showed on Sunday.
Is the pay at the same level or not remotely? Because obviously male footballers can earn a fortune.
They can, yes. And because, of course, they have had, you know, many, many years of growth and commercial development that the women's game has only just started to come to. So the pay is massively different. But I think something that also sets the women's game apart from the men's game is also the kind of social change and the social purpose behind it. And we can see that from, you know, the actions that the Lionesses are trying to drive in terms of the change for girls. And I think women's football is just starting to redefine our national game, actually. You know, it's bringing people together more. It's building that national pride again. And it's really sparking that lasting social change for women and girls, because we know that since the 2022 Euros, the number of girls playing football has more than doubled by from 1.2 million in 2021 to 2.7 million in 2025. But despite that positive growth, we know from the research out there that 24% fewer girls than boys play team sports. And our charities research also shows that 43% of girls fall away from sport in their teenage years. We obviously hope that the Euros and the upcoming Women's Rugby World Cup is going to help level that playing field a little bit. But I think to do so, these major tournaments need to be much more than just a moment. You know, so many women and girls will be inspired by the Lionesses, and we need to make sure that we can meet that demand and support them to play.
And I mean, there's always that call, isn't there? Well, I remember it last time too. In terms of the physicality of the game and the way that it's played, is there a big difference? Because the men's game at the top levels can be incredibly physical, quite aggressive. Is the women's game played differently?
I think the women's game is just as physical and just as aggressive as the men's game. You know, I think there are biological differences between men and women that we have to recognise and we have to appreciate. And that's why men and women have often been separated in sports, because of that. But I think overall, actually, the Lionesses' game is incredibly skillful. It's incredibly talented. It's incredibly strategic in their kind of delivery. And I think more than anything, like we just said, the resilience they show, the grit, the determination is unlike any other team I have ever seen before. So I think for that, we can say that the game in its own right is fantastic. And I think the growing demand and the growing kind of fandom base that the sport is growing shows that, actually, that people really enjoy watching women's football and women's sport more broadly.
And who are the players that have really captured people's attention? I mean, we've heard of some names, obviously, and Lauren James coming off injured, walking with a slight limp, we hear today, or we saw her walking into Downing Street just a few minutes ago. But, you know, is it personality driven when you say that there is more interest and more engagement? Is it a question of people getting behind the whole team, or do you think people are really excited by individuals?
I think it's a bit of both, actually. I think the way that the team is united together, the way that they support one another, the way that they talk about each other is quite different to how we might see in other forms of sport. And everybody knows their role on the pitch. Everybody plays their part on the pitch, and everybody is equally valued, I think. And I think that strong sense really comes through when you hear the team talk about one another, and also when they talk about their coach. and their managers as well. You know, there is a real united team and force behind the Lionesses. I think there are obviously shining stars, and we've seen some shining stars from this tournament come through. You know, Michelle Ajuman, Lucy Bronze is an absolute solid force behind the Lionesses and the true heart of the sport. We've got the late substitutions like Chloe Kelly, who have come on and just made an absolute splash. But I think really what people are getting behind is the camaraderie that you see behind the team and the united nature of what they do. I think that's something different that we probably haven't seen much before.
Serena Wiegmann's record is absolutely extraordinary, isn't she? I'd love to know how she does it. But Tanya Martin, thank you very much indeed. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
Around the world and across the UK, this is The World Today on BBC News.